because nobody puts the hot in Hotfix more than Dan Mode.
I thought you were going to say Geoffrey.
Well, I think we've got the beginning of that video segment, so thank you, Brant. So we have been talking about how we wanted to release a hotfix for the Homecoming update for quite some time. We really wanted to make sure that we bashed on it until we were certain that it was going to be 100% an improvement to the game, not introduce any new bugs to it. And so we spent some time with it in the public test realm, making sure it was ready to go. But now it has launched a few days ago. And the hotfix includes just some targeted changes to hit some of the biggest headaches that might have launched with the Homecoming update, starting with the fact that moving maps has now been improved. So now, when you move maps, you can now bring all of the vehicles from your parking slots and the vehicle that you're driving to the exit. That's really important because basically for a long time you've been able to bring all of the vehicles with you that were parked at your base, unless you went to the exit with a vehicle. Then you would add a fifth vehicle to the list, but then when you arrived at the new map, it would only pick 4 vehicles to park at your base. And so randomly, one of the vehicles that you expected to bring with you would be deleted, and you wouldn't have it anymore. And that was garbage. We really wanted to ship this improvement with the Homecoming update because we knew so many people were going to be moving maps to get to Trumbull Valley, but unfortunately it didn't quite make the cut. But it's in now with Hotfix 26.1. So now if you move maps, if you've got 4 cars, which is the maximum number of cars you could have parked at your base, if you've got 4 cars parked at your base and you're driving a car up to the exit, all 5 of those cars will come with you and be parked near the new base that you arrive at in the new map. So
that's how I lost my wizard ban.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of people. I've heard multiple people tell stories of having lost a favorite vehicle that way. So we're really sorry about that. And now it's fixed. So please enjoy the new updated experience of moving maps. So the Trumbull Valley missions, we were getting a lot of reports from players that it felt like they were having a lot of trouble firing when they were supposed to. And so we made several fixes in that direction, hoping that we can sort of uncap a lot of those missions. The first thing we did was we had a limit on the number of Trumbull Valley missions that could be active at the same time, so that if you had one already ongoing, it would not spawn another one until you had finished that first mission. So so basically what that meant was you had a very slow trickle of Trumbull Valley missions, including like the little radio interstitial missions that would happen in between them, and it meant the plot of Trumbull Valley would just be at a crawl for a lot of players, depending on the order in which you decided to tackle them. And so now we've uncapped them, so you can have Tressy's missions, Isby's missions, Hoffman's missions, Mickey's missions, and Ray's missions all going at the same time. There's an overall cap on the number of missions you can have, so you can still hit a limit, but you can have any sort of within reason, have any combination of those going at once. So hopefully, players who were being held up by that in the past will find that the dam has broken and they'll be able to get through more of the story content. There were another couple things that might have been holding it up too. We had a couple of sites that it was possible for plague hearts or enclaves to get into that would sort of, it would be like a location in the map that was necessary for a mission. And some of those places could be claimed by sort of random factors in the game, like enclaves and plague hearts, and it could potentially mess up the missions. Sometimes a plague heart would arrive and just make a mission way harder than we intended it to be. But sometimes it would be an enclave moving into a place and making it difficult for the missions to work. So we've also recategorized some of those sites so that can't happen anymore. So if you've got a new spawn of the Trumbull Valley map, that shouldn't happen anymore. And then also, let's see here. Breaking the Code, which is Isby's third and final mission, the one where she calls down a bunch of Clio drops and you get to run around and collect a bunch of rewards. That one no longer repeats endlessly. That was kind of it was an extremely minor scripting bug where basically we've got these things under the surface of the game called fate cards, which are basically a deck of cards saying which, that are sort of randomly doling out missions. And one of them, the one that was set up to decide whether or not you could spawn that final Isby mission, was checking the wrong variable to see if that mission had spawned before. So it was checking a mission that was like later on in the series. And so of course it would always find that mission had not spawned yet. And so it would just spawn the third mission again and again and again. And I think that might actually have been part of what was holding up the story for some players, because not only was that mission spawning again and again, but we could only have one active Trumbull Valley mission at once. So if you had Isby cycling, you basically would get none of the other story content forever. So that is now fixed. Isby's mission no longer repeats, and so I'm hoping that that's going to break the dam open and a flood of Trumbull Valley story content is going to come to those who weren't receiving it. Let us know, though. Go to support.stateofdecay.com if you're still finding it impossible to spawn these Trumbull Valley story missions, because we want to know if there's still a problem. These we've hit the main things that we thought were holding up the missions, but what this could do is solve a lot of the problem and then reveal additional problems that we just didn't know about because they were more rare. So there's that. We've also made some fixes to our landmark outpost. I should switch over into gameplay mode so we can have a look at where that is. So we've got a landmark outpost all the way over here near the dam. And let me, no disrespect to these fine people, but it's called the Echolab Research Station. And we had a couple of problems with it. For one thing, if you claimed this outpost, it was not actually triggering the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota achievement, which it was supposed to. So that now has been fixed, and it retroactively applies to anyone who should have received it and hadn't yet. And there was also, I haven't claimed the outpost, so I can't show you this in person, but it has an action on it that multiplied plague samples. And unfortunately, we had a wrong value set in there. And it would basically, you would feed it plague samples and chemicals and just get the same number of plague samples back. And that wasn't a very effective or useful action, so we fixed it. So now it actually gives you the 8 plague samples you're supposed to get from it. In addition, you'll also get bonus plague samples if you've got, medical and pathology experts in your community. So that happened, and then finally, this base right here that I'm in, the Red Talon FOB, it had a couple of problems. One of them was that the storage. You see that icon with the box? Sometimes, for some reason, that icon would not show up, and that also made it impossible for you to drop off rucksacks in person. You could still do it from your car if you wanted to, so it wasn't completely broken, but for some players who encountered that bug, it was really annoying, and so we fixed it. Now the storage should work reliably at all Red Talon Daybreak fobs. And also, if, unlike me, you decided to actually build an infirmary in this slot, which is what we actually kind of expect you to do, I've got a garden there, which is a bad decision. But if you had installed an infirmary there, which might have kept my community alive, you might have noticed that you could recruit a Red Talon operator as part of one of the, I think it was the workshop mission. Yeah, so if you're trying to repair your workshop, there's a mission that you can trigger that brings a Red Talon operator into your community, which is wonderful. You can only do it one time, unless you checked them into an infirmary. This is another one of those very minor scripting bugs where there's just a checkbox when I set up an objective when I set up a mission to check and see if you've got a guy that already has a certain expertise in your community. It says, by the way, should I check if they're in the infirmary? And it was set to no instead of yes. And so basically you could check that guy into an infirmary and then trigger the mission again. Then check that guy into the infirmary and trigger the mission again. Then check that guy into the infirmary and trigger the mission again. So you could end up with like 4 of these identical dudes in your community, which was, I'm sure, a lot of fun for the small number of players who actually did it. But that's not how we wanted that to work. And so that has been fixed as well.
Confirmed, Red Talon is cloning soldiers.
Yeah, exactly. And then on top of that, there were several fixes to the map that went on. There's a couple places where we had collision issues and stuff like that, where we fixed a couple minor things there. But probably one of the biggest fixes to the map was there was a volume that was placed for one of our final missions, one of our legacy missions, the final Traitor mission. And I've heard a lot of players talking about having run into this, and I am so sorry. Basically, there's a volume that we use to it's in every single map that's designed to mark this is where you spawn the bad guys in the Traitor Summit mission. And in most of the other maps, it was placed in a reasonable spot where they would just spawn in and they would come in and attack you when you're at the Trade Summit. But in this map, it was placed directly across a very rough rock wall. From the like a rock retaining wall from the factory, and so the characters would spawn and they'd be like, I don't know how to get to that factory. And they would just give up and run away. And so, but unfortunately, we've got a mission critical area around the factory, so you couldn't chase them down. And so they would just run away, and you'd be like, guys, could you please come and try to murder me? And they would not come and try to murder you, and it was really, really sad. So that is fixed. I moved that volume so that now it's like just down the driveway from the factory. They'll definitely catch up to you at the right time, and you can, kill them to your heart's content. That's it. That's update 26.1. So sorry to all of those players who had to deal with those bugs. We really appreciate your patience. A lot of you waiting 3 whole weeks for this whole hotfix to come out. But it is out now, and so we're really grateful to everybody for sticking with us. And always knowing that, sometimes there's bugs that sneak into this game, and we regret them, and we're kind of embarrassed about them. But we're also here paying attention to what you're saying and fixing them as fast as we can. And so that's a commitment that we've made, and we're sticking with it. I mean, this Homecoming update, again, as always, we've had players ask us, is this the final update? It's such a big update. Is this your last hurrah? No. We're kicking off some new stuff. We've got new updates planned in the future. There's so much support that's still going to be coming in for this game, and it's because you're all out there still playing for it, playing with us. Because as long as you're there, we want to be here too, making the game better for you and expanding it. So, thank you all.